What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you want to support me, you can now follow me on Patreon. It's a solid way to not only support the channel, but you'll get more say in what deck techs I covered. Additionally, you can always use that TCGplayer link in the description down below, or as always, just liking, commenting, subscribing will do the trick. Now, let's get into today's deck tech with Brenard, and honestly, this guy's an amazing Bant Aristocrats commander. He's going to double up on all of your die triggers, double up on all of your ETBs, and he's all around just busted. I really saw this guy and I was like, man, let's make a pod deck. He's pretty uniquely qualified for this because you get to keep all of the creatures you tutor for, right? Usually you lose them all, but now you can go into your Curious Follower, Kelpie Guide, Fate Stitcher, keep them all, and then you'll get 4 activations of that pod next turn, digging you, I don't know, from 5 mana to 9 mana. You can get yourself a Darksteel Splicer into something like a Phyrexian Tritiform. It ends up being pretty broken. This guy also has some pretty cool tech with Rampant Rejuvenator, because now whenever we kill it, it's going to get us 2 lands, and then we kill it again for a total of 5 lands, and then we'll just end up with free 7 lands on the battlefield, which seems pretty busted. Another thing we can use is Graz the Unstoppable. I've been looking for a deck to shove this in, and this seems like the perfect one. Since everything's a 1/1 that gets buffed up by our commander, we're going to have a bunch of 8 power creatures on the board to just start smashing our opponents with. So if you want to see all the broken stuff this deck can do and all the lines to get all of those broken stuff onto the battlefield, let's get into the deck tech. Let's kick it off by talking about our birthing pod route. I want to start this out by saying all of this is assuming we have our commander out and we are getting additional token copies of these creatures. The first thing we're going to do is sacrifice our generic 1-drop for a Curious Follower. The turn after that, we're going to sacrifice that 1-drop again to grab a Crashing Drawbridge. That way we can give all our untappers haste, and then we can go ahead and use Curious Follower to untap the pod and sacrifice Curious Follower. This will net us a Kelpie Guide. Now this is where it starts to get broken. Next turn we can sacrifice the Kelpie Guide to get a Fate Stitcher, activate the Crashing Drawbridge, that way Fate Stitcher has haste, and now we have 3 untap effects ready to go. So we can go from 4 CMC all the way to 7 CMC in 1 turn. For the 5-drops, we're either looking at an Oran Frostfang or an Ich Tekik. Oran Frostfang is pretty good here since our commander goes ahead and gives everything trample. That's going to give us the ability to assign only 1 damage as lethal. That way, if they have blockers, it's not even going to matter. And then we will draw a lot of cards. Ich Tekik is just a solid way to buff our board state up and, you know, add some golems to the battlefield. For the 6-drops, we're looking at Wormcoil Engine or Consecrated Sphinx. Both of these are pretty solid here. Basically, we just need some value pieces in the 6-drop section, so I chose these 2. And then for our 7-drops, it's kind of loaded with Darksteel Splicer, Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, or Protean Hulk. We will go over what you want to grab with the Hulk briefly later in the video. And then for our 8-drops, we have Graz the Unstoppable, and then 9-drops, we have Phyrexian Tritiform and Triplicate Titan. Notably, if you do grab the Darksteel Splicer, you're definitely going to want to grab the Phyrexian Tritiform. That way, when the Phyrexian enters the battlefield, you're going to get additional golems. It's going to be super broken. We're going to go super wide, and with Graz the Unstoppable, it's going to be pretty easy to kill everybody with our commander and our massive board of golems. Briefly going over what I like to grab with Protean Hulk, I really like to grab Mondrak and then something like a value piece like Curious Follower or Crushing Drawbridge if we don't already have it. And then if we already have Mondrak, it's super easy to grab Adrix and Nev, and again Crushing Drawbridge or Curious Follower, just those value pieces. We also run Esper Sentinel, so there's no wrong answers here. It's basically just a toolbox we can use to grab whatever we need when we need it. The reason I like to grab Mondrak here is, 1, it's a sacrifice outlet which can be pretty important in this deck, and then we can immediately sacrifice Protean Hulk to get another trigger, getting us our Adrix and Nev immediately. So now we have 2 token doublers on the battlefield and a Phyrexian Tritiform on the way. That's going to be super busted. Moving on, we definitely want to protect our board state. Boromir is going to be amazing for this because, again, we'll get 2 activations off of him. Making our board state indestructible can be pretty solid, and stopping all of those free spells is also going to be pretty cool. Guardian of Faith, I like this one because it's on ETB, so even if we use it once, it can just sit on the battlefield. We can sacrifice it, and boom, it re-enters, and again, we get that ETB effect, phasing all of our creatures out. Derevi, I like this not only to untap pod and our Vannifar, it's also going to be super solid just to, you know, untap our lands, get us some extra value. Maybe we want Vigilance. This is essentially Vigilance, right? Eternal Witness is going to be solid just to get anything we've lost from the graveyard back onto the battlefield. And again, we get 2 activations. Reese the Redeemed is also going to be pretty busted here. It's going to double up on all of our ETBs that are already turned into food tokens or golems, you know. It's going to double up on all of our golems that we've created. It's just a solid way to end out out the game and honestly just generate a ton of value. Ellis Schnorr, now the front side's not that good, but hey, flip her over and it's a one-sided board wipe. It incubates a lot, it buffs our board state up, and then, it destroys the permanents that aren't Phyrexians or artifacts, which is 90% of our deck. Sakashima is not only going to be super solid to copy anything that's broken on the board, but it's also going to be amazing to make sure whenever we're sacrificing one of our legendary creatures with a token doubler out on the battlefield, we're going to actually double up on it instead of having to sacrifice one. Fabricate's going to be super solid just to grab that birthing pod. We can use Worldly Tutor to grab Vanifar or any creature we need, and then Enlightened Tutor, again, 9 times out of 10, we're grabbing that birthing pod. Moving on to card advantage, we have that Esper Sentinel. I like Cold-Eyed Selkie because honestly, Island Walk's pretty broken, and then we can easily make it a 3/3 in this deck, drawing a consistent 3 cards per turn, pretty busted. Chulane, Teller of Tales, not only is this pretty solid with all of our ETBs, it's also pretty solid just for generic value that gets us lands into play. Elemental Bonds, there's a ton of 3/3s in the deck, so this draws an insane amount of cards. Elevere, I honestly like this girl. She seems just generically good, especially since our commander is giving stuff trample. We're going to be drawing cards and it's just going to compound into more cards, buffing our board more and more. She seems just like one of those generically good commanders that you could just shove in a deck, and I'm going to test it out. Guardian Projects, again, we have a lot of cards entering the battlefield instead of casting them, so this is going to be amazing to draw a card whenever we pot a creature. The Great Hinge works very similarly to this. Lauren of the Third Path is going to be solid just as extra card advantage, and again, a toolboxy option for that Protean Hulk grab to get rid of anything that's causing us issues on the battlefield. Mole Drifter's pretty busted here because we can evoke it, it'll sacrifice itself and enter again, so it's 3 mana, draw 4 cards. I will take that every day of the week. Evolutionary Leap is a solid instant speed sack outlet that's going to make it to where we always have creatures in our hand to play. Moving on to ramp, there is a lot of it because I wanted to make sure we could cast those 9 drops even if we don't get the pod scenario going. Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch, Secure Tribuilders especially busted here because again you can sacrifice him twice for 2 lands with our commander out. Rampant Rejuvenator is a total of 7 lands because it's 2 and then you sacrifice him and boom, he's a 5/5, so you're going to get an additional 5 lands totaling 7. Pretty busted in the deck. Solemn Simulacrum, again you're going to get 2 lands off this guy and 2 cards off this guy. Pretty good. 3 visits, Nature's Lure, Farseek, just the staples you shove in a green deck, and then I am running 4 Signets. Again, I just want to be ramping on turn 2, that way we get our commander out as fast as possible. Soul Ring's going to make it, it's a commander deck, and we have Ashnod's Altar, another instant speed sack outlet. Last but not least, Smothering Tithe, just because Smothering Tithe is so broken, especially when you pair it with cards like Itch Techic. Moving on to our interaction, I kept it pretty simple. We have Swords to Plowshare, an offer you can't refuse, Arcane Denial, Glen Elendra Archmage. I like this girl here because you can get 3 activations off of her instead of just 2. Generous Gift and Beast Within make sure we can get rid of any permanent that is causing us issues. Organic Extinction because it has Improvise and we run a lot of artifact creatures, or I should say we turn a lot of our creatures into artifact creatures. And then we have Austere Command, just really flexible for getting rid of anything that's causing the issue, whether it be enchantments, artifacts, whatever we need. That's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to follow me on Moxville. It's the easiest way to copy these deck lists, tweak them to your liking, and it'll help me be one of the top most followed people on Moxfield while you're doing that. As always, thank you to all the Patreons that support the channel. I couldn't do this without you. And with that being said, this is Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host, Caleb. I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.